Being a Torah Jew means more than just learning about Judaism. It means going out and doing something for fellow Jews. It means standing up to fight for what is right. It means speaking out for those who can't, crying out for justice against all odds. It means being courageous, being a leader. It means making a difference. Over the past decade, the Rambam Mesivta has undertaken the mission of speaking out on various social issues on behalf of Klal Yisrael. They have spearheaded the effort to bring Nazi war criminals, the killers of our people, to justice. What follows is a brief summary of some of these efforts.
There was a dramatic development this week in an important 2020 investigation. Last month, Chief Correspondent Chris Wallace took you on the trail of accused Nazi war criminals who were found as safe haven in Australia. Now one of the suspects may finally have to answer his accusers, and 2020 is still on the case.
The case of Conrad Calais has sparked international outrage.
Conrad Calais, the question of extradition or...
Calais was allegedly an officer in the Arise Commando, a Latvian death squad that murdered 30,000 Jews for the Nazis. An Australian citizen since 1957, he was kicked out of the U.S. and Canada after courts in both countries found him guilty of war crimes.
Conrad Calais violated the laws of war and committed war crimes or crimes against humanity.
Last month, 2020 tracked Calais to this retirement home near Rugby, England. Our discovery made front-page news in Britain. Camera crews staked him out round the clock. British authorities finally decided to deport Calais back to Australia. He flew to Melbourne last week under tight security.
How does it feel to be back in Australia, Mr. Calais? You happy to be back?
At first, it seemed Calais had nothing to fear. Australian officials said there were no plans to prosecute him. But Jewish groups worldwide were furious. In New York, high school students demonstrated at the Australian consulate. In Jerusalem, a top Nazi hunter demanded Calais face justice.
Now it's an issue of whether the political will exists to bring this mass murderer to justice.
All of which has spurred a big debate in Australia.
He may still be forced to stand trial.
Stung by accusations.
Refused to comment.
The Minister of Justice maintains Calais won't be prosecuted unless there's enough evidence.
Australia is not the sort of country that engages in show trials for the benefit of one person in the community or a group of people in the community.
But during a radio interview this week, Calais admitted for the first time he was in the Arise Commando, although he denied his unit killed civilians.
This was the Arise Commando. I found this out, but the soldiers were good soldiers, like any other soldiers.
Now the Australian Federal Police say they're reviewing new evidence against Calais.
Has the Latvian government asked Australia to send him over? Have they asked for his extradition?
I think it will happen within a few days, because it was a question on court's decision whether it will be, it was challenged, as you know.
Right.
And so now it is enforced. So I think that decision to extradite will follow very soon.
Okay, so you would expect in the next week or two?
I think so, yes.
Very soon.
Yes.
An accused Nazi war criminal is under arrest tonight in Australia, due in part to the work of some American Nazi hunters. And they are only teenagers, but they were able to influence the governments of two nations. Long Island reporter Carolyn Gussoff has the story.
In the classroom, they covered the usual studies, but it's their after-school activities that set these students apart. In their free time, they're Nazi hunters, and they're celebrating an achievement. They believe they're in part responsible for the arrest today of accused Nazi war criminal Conrad Calais. The 87-year-old living in an Australian retirement home was charged with genocide for his role as a Latvian commander during World War II.
These were Latvian citizens perpetrating crimes against
against their Jewish neighbors, brought them to forest, forced them to dig trenches, and then lined them up and shot them.
Calay's alleged war crimes were made public when the Soviet Union collapsed and Latvian records were opened. He was deported from the U.S. and then Canada and ultimately settled in Australia, where he had been a citizen. But Australian law prohibits the deportation of anyone who's been a citizen for more than 10 years.
They deprive hundreds of thousands of people.
That's why the students at Rambam Mesivta High School got involved. They rallied outside the Latvian and Australian consulate, embarrassing Australia right before the Olympics. Finally, 2 weeks ago, these 3 students were invited to meet with representatives of both governments.
We told them that we would not stop until the action would be taken, that we would continue, we would be relentless and just continue to pursue the matter until they would bring Calais, as well as other Nazis, to justice.
Both nations reached an extradition agreement, and today came news of Calais' arrest. For this great-grandchild of Holocaust victims, there was gratification.
I believe it is my job, as well as the job of everyone out there, to make sure that justice is served. Just because it's been 50, 60 years since the crimes were committed, there is no statute of limitations on murder in any court in the world.
We've learned at home and in school that everyone has a moral obligation to I guess you could say, better the world.
The students say their work will continue. They believe they've proven that small voices can make a big difference. Carolyn Gussoff, News Channel 4.
Students at a Long Island high school have become Nazi hunters. They've tracked down an accused war criminal, and they want him to stand trial for his crimes. CBS 2 reporter Michael O'Looney has the story.
He'd like everyone to be here. For more than a year, the students at Rambam High School in Lawrence, Long Island, have been fighting to bring accused Nazi war criminals like Conrad's Calais to justice.
Doesn't matter how long ago it was, justice has to be done.
The students held rallies and met with officials from both Latvia and Australia, pressing them to bring Calais to trial. Yesterday, there was a major breakthrough. The 87-year-old Calais, who has been living freely in Australia, was arrested in Melbourne. He now faces extradition to Latvia to stand trial on charges of genocide and war crimes. Rabbi Zev Friedman says his students deserve much of the credit.
And quite frankly, you have been able to shape the policies of the Latvian government and the Australian government. It's quite remarkable.
Calais is accused of belonging to a notorious Latvian death squad that murdered nearly 30,000 Jews during World War II. Calais has denied being involved in any criminal activity.
Well, to some degree, I feel satisfaction, along with my other students, that, we finally got something done. However, the process still isn't over, and there's still more work to be done to ensure that he is extradited and brought to justice.
Rabbi Friedman says he's trying to instill a philosophy of social activism in his students. That philosophy is simple. If you see something wrong in the world, try to make a difference. The students say they are also a voice for the victims, the last hope for making sure old men like Calais pay for their alleged crimes of the past.
I don't think it makes a difference how old a person is or how long ago he committed any crime. It doesn't change the fact that the crime is committed. I mean, some of his victims were 87 years old, but that didn't make a difference.
Calais is free on bail pending an extradition hearing on January 25th. Michael O'Looney, CBS 2.
Much work needs to be done on this and other issues. Caring about others and helping others is an integral part of Rambam's way of life. We cannot sit by and watch evil triumph and our fellow Jews suffer. We can do something about it. We can make a difference. And because we can, we must. Rambam Mesivta, making a difference.